What are some examples of it's cheaper to be rich than poor? Everyone's gonna say rent vs mortgage, but there's more to it than just equity. Another aspect is that there's an opportunity cost to buying that's not immediately obvious, and that cost is significantly reduced, if not outright inverted to a benefit, the better off you are. And that is jobs. Say you and your neighbor are competing for a job. The job is in another city with a comparable cost of living. It's not going to be any more or less expensive to live there other than here. The job pays 20% more. A significant raise. Except, you can't really afford both a mortgage and rent. You need the proceeds from the sale of your current home to buy a new one. And that's on top of the huge expense that is moving your stuff to another city. It's going to be a pretty significant hardship to actually accept the new job. Sure, once you're there it's a clear benefit, but you can't actually afford the transition. Your neighbor, on the other hand, is a bit more well off than you. They have more savings, pay a smaller percent of their income in housing. Even though the job is only a 10% raise for them, they can actually afford to move and take it. They can afford to pay rent and the mortgage for a couple of months while waiting for the house to sell so that they can buy a new one while maintaining adequate reserves. Your other neighbor on the other hand makes even more money than either of you and has even bigger savings. Sure, the job is only a 5% raise, but they can afford to just outright buy a new house in the new city and retain the old one, hiring a rental management firm to get in some tenants. Sure, between landlord expenses and the management company's cut they don't even pay for the mortgage from the tenants. But it's close, and they keep on building that equity for very little cost. Your other neighbor makes more than all of you. He gets a management job at that company for a 10% raise, but the company pays for all of his moving expenses, including 4 months in an apartment, while he secures a new house. He has basically zero cash outlay to move except for the fast food and gas on the drive over to the new city. He doesn't understand why some people turn down jobs that pay better because they can't afford to accept. There's a sweet spot in your career and economic life where renting makes more sense. You can just say nah, I don't want to live here anymore and take that better paying job in another city. But that's only for poor people. The richer you are, the fewer opportunity costs you are paying, so you can get that equity. The rich get richer and poor people are stuck at a lower paying job. The hole in this scenario is the fact that you can take a HELOC loan net ratio considering and use that to move and live elsewhere. We're selling your current home. Right. So more fees, more expense, more time and effort, hit your credit which might put you at a higher interest rate on the new mortgage, and complicate closing. That's not a cost that the rich don't have to pay. You're kind of making my point for me. Work from home. Poor people have more service-oriented jobs that don't allow for it. This past year has shone a spotlight on this one for sure. You don't got to go to work. Work, 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 work. Remote work. I'm practically saving the equivalent in a minimum wage job from reduced wear and tear / gas / servicing / insurance. And that's just the quantitative dollars. Excellent point. As a corollary, we still have people in denial about work from home lasting well beyond COVID. Employers that still insist on regular FaceTime and daily commutes will be at a huge disadvantage when seeking talent by Q3 of this year. Yep, it's not even just an engagement or preference conversation at that point. It has life-altering social and economic implications. The age of figuring out childcare on your own is gone. Talented employees will want the ability to work from home in a balanced capacity, and smart employers will make it work to allow a person with kids, long commute, or variation of both to work from home means to give an indirect compensation windfall of thousands of dollars a month. It's win/win for both parties. Bad employers with bad leaders won't be able to handle it and will retain steep talent, but good employers will figure it out. Dental care. If you can afford to go to the dentist even once a year, get preventative care, fix cavities early, and it's significantly less expensive than more complicated restorations and treatment. I know way more poor people who just wait there's a serious issue and just have a tooth pulled because that's cheaper. I know someone who lost a chunk of jawbone from a bad tooth and needed a bone graft. Not to mention, dentists in the US have worked hard to prevent dental care being included in health insurance. You need separate dental insurance, even though oral health is very much connected with your overall health. I need to go to the dentist so bad, but I've been avoiding it. Both cost money and also because of severe anxiety, and I was just at the point where I was like just do it, and then the pandemic hit. But I know I will be peeped harder if I don't go. I didn't go for 10 years because of lack of insurance and then the anxiety of what could be wrong. I finally went a few months ago and it was so worth it for the peace of mind. They were not judgmental at all. I also got my wisdom teeth out. That sucked. Someone mentioned cars in passing in another comment, but it's a really good example. I worked in the business/accounting office of a car dealership for 5 years. I remember going through files and thinking, man, I wish I could afford to write a personal check for 28,000. And that person who had 28k to spare is going to be paying less overall than the person who makes half that amount in a whole year, who gets forced into a 14% interest rate. Yes, really. I've seen 24% at times, just so they can have a car to get themselves to work when this breaks down beyond reasonable repair. We once had a guy almost maximum out for different credit cards paying for his car. And when our finance director tried to tell him he'd qualify for a much lower interest rate on a loan with manufacturer than the interest rate on these cards, the guy brushed him off and said, I'll have all of these paid off in 2 weeks. So presumably he had the money to just hand us a check, but was getting a lot of cash back on these large purchases on his very high limit credit cards. The difference between that and a 24% interest rate on an already used car is just so unfortunate. I recall being forced to finance on my last car purchase in order to get the lowest price, even though I literally paid it off days later. Just an annoying inconvenience for me, but I feel bad for people who need those insane loan rates. Given how hard they push to get people to finance, it must be a horrible deal for the buyer. Rich people often have connections and can get things or services for free or reduced rates. So true. Best seats I've ever had for sporting events were always free through work, which I would also offer to other people at the top of the ladder at their jobs for free. People give lots of gifts to rich people who don't need them. On the flip side, one client of mine I knew was struggling and was taking steps to close down his business. Some tickets for a baseball game right behind home plate fell into my lap, and I got them to him. He took his kids and said it was one of the best times they ever had, and was a real bright spot in a dark period of time. Having to pay for something again after every time it wears out instead of being able to buy a really nice one once. I think this has gotta be one of the main ones. The one time I spent over like $25 on shoes, they lasted for ages. Thank you for helping me realize more of my privilege. I can't remember the last time I spent less than 25 GBP/$35 US on shoes. At this point, anything around 50 feels cheap. That said, I don't have a ton of shoes. Basically 100 dress shoes, 125 running shoes, 150 work boots, then all the previous generations of each that all serve their purpose. This is going to sound so insufferably boastful, but I have so much unreasonable privilege in my life that I need help realizing that my experiences are so different from others. Thank you. Ran out of money in your checking account? Well, now you have to pay a 50 fine for not having any money. Tons of money in your savings account? Way to go. Superstar. Here's some extra. Recently got an email that said, if I deposit and maintain 20,000 in a new account for 90 days I get 200. Whoever accidentally qualifies for that would not need an extra 200. Maybe won't even notice it.